You work hard, and you're good at what you do. People depend on you. But if you were injured in an accident, and if it wasn't your fault, you would need someone you could depend on. If you or someone you know is injured in an accident, talk to someone that you know is on your side. Call Hames, Anderson, and Whitlow for results you can depend on. Hames, Anderson, and Whitlow, just the help you need.
This is CNN. This is a presentation of CNN Sports.
Coming up on College Football Preview, the new preseason #1. But will it be a Spurrier of the moment? Because last year's #1 is not far behind. We'll go through the top 10 from the Golden Dome through the Desert Swarm and Rolling Tide. And touch on the entire preseason top 25 on College Football Preview.
This is College Football Preview with Paul Crane and analyst Danny Sheridan.
Good morning and welcome to College Football Preview. I'm Paul Crane alongside analyst Danny Sheridan, who just returned from Gainesville, Florida, home to the new preseason #1 Florida Gators, as voted by the USA Today CNN Coaches Poll. I would think they're very fired up, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Headlines in the paper, we're #1. I think the last time Florida was #1 with Paul was 1985 for 1 week. Then you'd probably have to go back to the late 1600s. They're already hawking T-shirts. You know, we're #1. Steve Spurrier's a heck of a coach. This is a good football team, but boy, what a tough schedule.
Well, making a pilgrimage to the top, at least right now, and we'll get right at a look at the new top 10, according to the coaches. Florida, again, #1, with the defending national champions, a close #2. Nebraska will start right where it finished after that tough Orange Bowl loss to the Seminoles at #3. Notre Dame, a preseason #4, with Michigan starting another year with its usual high expectations. Miami may not have shown up in the Fiesta Bowl New Year's Day, but shows up here at #6. Colorado 7, Arizona and its Desert Swarm defense #8, Penn State and Alabama rounding out the top 10. Florida comes into the new season riding more than the high of its thumping of previously unbeaten West Virginia in the Sugar Bowl New Year's night. Even losing running back Eric Rhett, the Gators return a potent offense with 2 experienced quarterbacks. Both Terry Dean and Danny Werfel give Coach Steve Spurrier reason to be confident. He's made a number of changes in his last in the SEC pass defense, but at #1, Florida starts where every team would like to finish.
We're not thinking national championship unless we were lucky enough at the end of the year to possibly be in position to do that. But right now, we're very appreciative, very thankful, and again, to think that the coaches around the country think that highly of our football program is something very special at this time.
A lot of people say we're not as good as we seem to be or whatever, so, you know, there's no pressure on us. You know, we just go out and play the best possible football we can, and if at the end of the year we're ranked #1, that's good. You know, if not, you know, life goes on.
Well, a long way to go before the end of the year. We talked about the defensive changes Coach Spurrier made, but you think of Florida, you think of offense, and those 2 experienced quarterbacks.
Right, well, what they want to do, Paul, they want to avoid the situation that they had last year where one was looking over his shoulder all the time. Terry Dean is the #1 quarterback. Danny Werfel is named designated 1A. Great position to be in, 2 good, experienced quarterbacks.
Well, if it's Dean's job to lose right now and without looking over his shoulder, when he looks behind him in the backfield, no more Eric Rhett. Who's going to replace him at the tailback spot?
Well, the tailback spot, Paul, is the most integral part of Steve Spurrier's offense. He'll go with a redshirt freshman, Elijah Williams. If for some reason he gets injured or he doesn't do well, Fred Taylor, a true freshman. A lot of inexperience. Those 2 guys are very talented, but hey, they've never carried the ball for Florida.
Which means there's inexperience at perhaps the most important offensive position in that offense, which is not a fullback or tight end oriented offense.
That's true, but again, great athletes.
All right. Well, Florida will eventually get its annual game with Florida State, the last game of the regular season, but there's plenty on the table before November 26th for the Seminoles. Florida State will have to replace Heisman Trophy winner Charlie Ward, but won't have to fix much else. The team is loaded on both sides of the ball, but will now look to junior Danny Cannell to get through its 8 ACC games in one of the toughest non-conference schedules in the country.
Danny Cannell started 1 ball game and threw 5 touchdown passes, had no interceptions, no sacks. You know, now if he could play like that every Saturday, we'd be all right. You know, so we're going to have a good football team, but the one guy that when we wasn't quite up to the task, the one guy that could bring you back, the one guy that could cover up a lot of your mistakes was Charlie Ward.
Well, if Cannell can throw 5 touchdown passes every week, I guess it will be all right. But it's almost impossible for Cannell to do every week what he did against Maryland. However, the Seminoles are expecting him to be pretty good and aren't necessarily making a whole lot of changes because Ward is gone, are they?
Well, he's got 2 things in his favor. He's got a great first name, Paul, highly recruited, and the only reason why this kid didn't start last year, obviously, he was playing behind a Heisman Trophy candidate. There are rumors that they're going to change the offense. That's not true. They're still going to stay in the shotgun. Cannell just won't be able to freelance as Charlie Ward did last year.
Well, and Danny thanks you, Danny. Defensively, Seminoles strong as well, with great players at each element of the defense. On the line, you've got Derek Alexander, then Derek Brooks at the linebackers, Clifton Abraham at the defensive backs, with good players around them.
Right, but the defense, as good as they are, they're going to have to step it up this year, Paul. And the reason is when the defense took the field last year, they were either ahead in the first quarter or the game was over by the second half. So as the defense will be better, and they better be better because they're not going to have that luxury this year.
It was a pretty different situation. They were able to just pin their earbacks and get after it, which is not going to be the case, you don't think, this year.
No, it's a lot of fun when the game's over at halftime or when you're ahead 14-0 in the first quarter.
That's right. Through the first several games, the defense had outscored the Florida State's opponents totally.
Right.
So,
you'll have a good offense, obviously, at Florida State, but not like last year.
well, another team with something to prove is Nebraska. The Huskers may have lost 2-time Big 8 rushing leader Calvin Jones to the NFL, but it still returns the most potent running game in the Big 8 Conference, with a tougher schedule that should get Nebraska more respect, if nothing else.
We were a field goal away. We only lost by 2 points in the national championship game. What if we go out and perform the way we did last year and get to the national championship game? Yeah, maybe we can pull it off this year.
Hopefully we're good. Last year we thought we'd be good. We expected to be good. We were good, and same way this year.
I think it's fair to say Nebraska opened more eyes in that Orange Bowl loss to Florida State 18-16 than it did with its 11-0 record going into that game, don't you think?
No, that's a good point. In fact, I would say, Paul, they probably got more respect from that game last year than when Tom Osborne went for 2 points in the 1984 Orange Bowl against Miami and forego. If he kicks the extra point, he wins the national championship. So, yes, a lot of respect, and deservedly so.
And, of course, coming into this season now, Tom Osborne, perhaps the biggest coaching name, still looking for his first ever national championship now that Bobby Bowden got his a year ago, and running that offense, the key, quarterback Tommy Frazier, is he not?
Absolutely. And Frazier, he would be my sleeper choice for the Heisman Trophy winner. As Tommy Frazier goes, so goes Nebraska's offense. And that offense, they're going to be favored in all of 12 regular season games.
And while Nebraska doesn't necessarily need to open things up this year, the team should be better, perhaps even than it was a year ago.
Oh, I think they'll definitely be better. And again, it's more experience for Tommy Frazier. That makes the difference. And a well-coached ball club, and more importantly, a fairly easy schedule compared to some teams in the top 5.
Which means they could be hanging around again when we get to New Year's Day.
They will be hanging around again, and deservedly so if they go undefeated.
Well, we've only scratched the surface of the new top 10 here, and still ahead, we'll look at the new quarterback era finally ready to start at Notre Dame, where Ron Paulus is set to take the helm for the Fighting Irish. But that's just part of what's still ahead. Michigan Wolverines hope to shed sheep's clothing by tying one on the rest of the Big Ten, and Miami's Dennis Erickson feeling some heat when College Football Preview continues.
What is it about Ford Taurus that makes it America's best-selling car? Is it Taurus SHO with its amazing handling and 24-valve, 220-horsepower performance, its driver-oriented interior, or the unique ways SHO finds to reward the driver like no other performance sedan? Ford Taurus SHO, another reason why Taurus is the best-selling car in America. Again.
We're challenging shoppers to compare X14 mildew stain remover to Tilex.
Oh, look at that. X14! It changed from almost like black to white. The Tilex side still is brown. X14 is something I would definitely buy.
Now that we have frequent traveler programs for business, pleasure, old and young, we thought it was time we had a new sign. Your best bet is a Best Western.
I thought we deserved it in '89. Y'all pointed out I was wrong. And even I am smart enough that I can learn. I'm not very smart, but I can learn. Y'all were right. In '89, you're absolutely right. And if that's the way the scenario is, I would expect you to be right again in '93.
Oh, and we know how that turned out, don't we? There is no doubt Notre Dame had a legitimate claim to at least a share of last year's national championship with its mid-November win over Florida State. But those head-to-head rules, which gave Miami its 1989 title, somehow changed a year ago. It should be no surprise the Irish are loaded again. That massive offensive line